Hello and welcome. I am Thaddeus Campbell, your host for the Self Storage Made Simple podcast. So excited to be back with you guys. This is really the third iteration because we just renamed the podcast after one episode, but the really second iteration of my self-storage podcast. So excited today. We are entering the Hoan zone. And if you are in real estate and have not been exposed to Hoan Tai, you are in for a treat tonight. I was very lucky to have been able to work alongside him. We shared an office, although both of us worked remotely, so maybe you could count on one hand the number of times we were in the office at the same time. But a guy who has been in real estate for a while, a guy who I say his superpower, super marketing, understands that inside and out, but really understands how to connect people to other people in a way that helps all the parties involved. And that's a skill set and a trait that I love. If you ever read the book, The Go Giver, talks all about that concept as a way to create and grow. And Hoan really embodies that. So Hoan, thank you so much for taking some time. I know you got a newborn, well, not so much newborn anymore, 4 or 5 months old now.
4 months. Yeah.
But still a young baby. You're taking time out for us to come and join the podcast. Really appreciate you coming and joining me.
Thad, just like follow me around and do that intro every time I meet somebody new. That was great. That was great. Just do that. Oh, hey, nice to meet you. Here's Thad to give you my intro.
I will do that, but it will cost you. So you may not want to. Sure. I'll just record it and you can play it on an iPhone and let them know.
I'm just going to take this recording.
That's too funny. I want to start, as I always do on this podcast, and kind of go back to the beginning of how you got into real estate to begin with. What is it that attracted you to real estate, and how did the journey start for you in this wonderful thing we call real estate investing?
Yeah, what's funny is I was introduced to real estate from a friend of mine who was like, yo, you should be a real estate investor. You should buy in this neighborhood, right? This is Kensington, Philadelphia. He's like, you should buy in Kensington. It's going to explode and all this stuff, right? And this was in 2008. And I was just like, no, man, real estate looks stupid. It's boring. Who cares? Why do it, right? And then I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2009. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, real estate, right? But remember back in 2008, I was like, nah, I was booing it. And so it's funny how that happened. And then 2009 happens and I'm like all about it. But Rich Dad Poor Dad doesn't give you any strategy. So then I had to go figure out how to actually become a real estate investor. So I went to like every seminar and boot camp and mastermind, whatever I can get my hands on. And it was ultimately this one coaching program that I ended up signing up for that taught me how to BRRRR. Before BRRRR had a name, like it was teaching BRRRR, and I got involved. And I thought that was like the craziest magic trick in the world because I was always stuck on stupid. I would always ask, how do you buy so many properties? Because if you put 20% down or 30% down, like you run out of money. So how do people just keep on buying properties? Then again, like I said, I learned about BRRRR and I was like, oh my gosh, I thought it was the coolest thing. So learned how to BRRRR, and then it's been property after property since then, and then just constantly expanding my skill set, now involved with syndications and multifamily self-storage, still doing residential properties, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that's how it started.
I'm going to have you break down BRRRR for those of people that are watching this for self-storage that for whatever reason may not understand what that strategy is. Talk me through it real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. BRRRR is an acronym. It's BRRR. There's 4 R's, right? The first R is renovate. The second R is rent. The third R is refinance. And then the fourth R is to repeat. So what you're doing is you're fixing up a property. You're going to rent the property out, and then you're going to refinance. And the reason you're refinancing is you want to pull your money back out. It is assumed that after you do your renovations, that your property has gained so much in value that when the bank says, we'll lend you 70% loan to value, we'll lend you 80% loan to value, that you were only in for that 70 or 80%. You're like a round number. Let's say you were all in for $70,000 and the property's worth $100 after you did all your work, right? But you're only in for 70. If the bank is willing to give you a $70,000 loan, that's 100% financing. Even though it's 70% of the value, it's 100% financing to your pocket. So you have all your money back. And so guess what? The last R, you get to repeat. And you can do that with any type of property, including self-storage. You buy a self-storage facility for low enough, You do your value add, you get the rents up, you get this nice valuation, and then you can go to a bank and say, hey, bank, I got this property. It's worth XYZ. Give me whatever you're going to give me. And then they might give you 70%. They might give you 75. They might give you 80%, but you might be all in for that amount. And so then you've made an infinite return on your money because you have no money in the deal. It's 100% financed by the bank. So I learned about that. You can do it in self-storage, and it's just a game changer if you're not actually leveraging it.
That's awesome. So take me a little bit through the journey from 2009. How long did it take you to jump in and actually get involved in a project?
2 years, 2 freaking years, right? Like I have the 2009 wanted to buy real estate Kool-Aid drink. And it's funny because at that same time, like real estate investors before me, they're crashing and burning. 2008, 2009, we all know what happened then. Like I have no idea. I'm not in the business. So it's all sunshine and rainbows for me. 2009, let's do it. It was great. It was like naivety, right? It was just like, okay, yeah, this is fantastic. Again, people are losing their minds. They're losing all of their savings. They're losing their whole portfolio. They're going bankrupt. They're going through foreclosure. Some people killed themselves. Like literally, like it's crazy what's happening. And I'm over here just like, a future. And here's what's crazy about that. As we all know, what's the market like today, right? If you can rewind time and go back to 2009, 2010, 2011, you'd buy as many properties as you can because everything since then has double, triple, quadrupled, 10x. And so 2009 to 2011, it took me 2 years to figure out how to buy my first property. And it wasn't until that course that I told you, that little mastermind thing that I paid for, where he taught me how to burr. And then not only that, he also said, hey, Hoan, do you want to buy this property? He had a property in his portfolio that he was going to buy and renovate and do all the things. But then he decided not to. And so he was like, he said it was too small for him. And this was a 6-unit apartment building. So he was like, hey, do you want to buy it? And I was just like, oh, no, it's too big, right? At least that was what I said to him, right? No, I don't want to buy it. And then luck would have it, he reaches back out. I don't know, a week later, a month later, I don't know. But I think he just forgot that he asked me. So he literally pitches me the same property again. And I go, hold on, let me take a look at it. Let me not be a little punk. I was going to curse, but let me not be a little punk. And let me take a look. And I analyzed it based on the things that I learned from class. And through that analysis, I realized it was the deal of the century. And so I was like, okay, can you help me find financing? Can you help me with any, the process? And ultimately he said yes. Here's what's crazy. At the time, he hooked me up with a hard money lender. The hard money lender was at 6 points and 16% interest. So that's a lot of money. And then on top of that, he threw a 2-point brokering fee for putting that deal together. So I ultimately paid 8 points and 16% interest. But you got to remember, this was 2011. Lots of deals, no money. So the people who are willing to lend you the money, it's going to cost you a lot.
They protected their downside risk.
Of course. But what's also crazy is deals everywhere, meaning you're buying them for very cheap. So it's like whether you're paying a lender 8 points or you're paying, 8 points to the seller, it's just not called points. It's just called a higher sales price, right? So it all kind of works out in the wash if you get it.
When you put it on paper and you go through the process and you do your pro forma and you understand numbers, ultimately, this is something my first real estate mentor drilled into my head. What you're paying to borrow money doesn't matter. What matters is what's the upside of the deal, right? Don't get caught up and hung up on what's your cost of debt. Get caught up on it. Are you buying it at the right price? Is it reasonable to think you're going to get a return on it? Because ultimately, if you don't get that debt and don't buy the deal and the deal was going to be a winner, who cares if the guy lending you the money made more money than you ultimately, right? Like if he made more money than you did, who cares? If you bought a deal and it worked out, that's the win, right?
Right. 3 keywords. Mind your business. My business was, how much am I buying the property for? How much am I going to rehab the property for? And what's it going to be worth at the end? That's my business. Their business is how much they're charging.
what that doesn't mean is don't do your due diligence and go look for as many people as you can to talk to secure debt. Of course, right? We want to
Right, right,
we
right.
want to try and go
Which is
find the
which is
best
my business.
possible outlet, right?
Right. That's my business. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, here's a crazy story though. Well, not crazy, but like remember in 2008 my friend told me to be a real estate investor, right? So I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad 2009 and then I don't buy that property until 2011. The guy who sold me the property, I found out, you can look it up, how much he paid for the property and then how much he sold it to me for. So I saw that he made $20,000 on the sale, right?
Mhm.
I tell my friend about that, the friend from 2008, and he goes, "Oh, no way, man. I would never pay anybody that much money." And it's like, dude, mind your business.
Oh,
Does
it's
the
so
deal
interesting, right?
does the deal work for me? And by paying him 20 grand, do the numbers still work for me? I pay him 20 grand. I pay him 2 points. I pay the lender 6 points. I pay the lender 16% interest. Does the deal still work for me? So I now have a ton of properties and the friend still has no properties. He's got the property he lives in, right? But it's weird that like people count other people's money and like, oh no way, I would never pay that. And it's like it's the wrong thinking.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? At my day job, I flip land for a living. That's my job, right? Go out and find properties that work for self storage, and I have a network of developers that I work with. And you find out very quickly who the developers are that care about how much you're going to make, right?
Okay,
My
yeah.
job is to go find really good properties that a developer who's spending their time, talking to GCs and solving problems with the city and with permitting and with things that come up during building. They are not spending their time going out and looking for raw pieces of land. They don't have time to do it. And what you find is, and just to give an example, flipped a piece of property that I put under contract for $1,000,001 and we flipped it for 1.3, did no due diligence on the raw land at all. The developer did 100% of it. And after he bought that piece of property, he called me up and said, "When can you give me another one?" That's what's great about real estate investing is you get a group there. As I said, there are those people that'll try and count your money, but there are so many people there like, no, it doesn't matter. Go out and make money. If you provide something to me that's of value to me and I can make money on the other end of it, God bless, we all win. And that's one of the reasons I love real estate, particularly love self-storage.
Yeah, yeah. I think people need to play the forever game. People play too much of the transactional game, the today game, the short term game. But if you play the game where you don't think that there's an end date, and that means that you have to continue to play this game until either we quit or we die, right? If you're gonna play for that many years, that many decades, you got to figure out how to play it so that you can win over that course of time. Nobody's going to want to play the game with you if you keep like keeping all the chips or whatever, right? It's like,
100%.
yeah, people see through that. They're like, no way would I do that. I was at
Pigs
a
get
meeting
fat,
recently.
hogs get slaughtered, right?
Yeah, yeah, and the slaughtering, interestingly enough, isn't like really apparent. They're not like when people are not working with you, it doesn't seem like you're being slaughtered. It just seems like,
Right.
oh, the market's dry. Oh, the market's slow. The
So
market's
interesting you say that. Yep.
you're getting slaughtered without knowing it.
Yep.
I
100%.
was I was just at an event. And here's what's crazy, right? The 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 real estate world is a very small place. There's this guy that was at the event who I heard, and I don't know if it was rumors, this, that, the other, but it was like he he either stole a deal or he borrowed money and didn't pay it back or something like that. Something like where he did some snaky thing. It's
Yep.
like, oh, okay. So he doesn't know that I know this about him. So
Right.
he comes to me. He's like, "Hey, man, good to see you." He shakes my hand, all that kind of. I'm like, "Hey, yeah." And it's just like,
Never doing business with you.
I'm never doing anything. I'm not even
Yeah.
really going to talk to you. Like,
Yeah.
hey, how's it going? Like, just like the niceties, but that's it. I'm in a
Yeah.
public space, right? I'm in an event, but I'm not ever going
Yeah.
to like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
definitely never do business with him. But even like friendship wise, like you're not even going to be friends with him, and that's the slaughter. That's the slaughter that people don't even know that it's happening.
So interesting. I was talking on my first episode of the new podcast with Anthony Krupa, who's a well-known guy in the self-storage space, came up as a manager of Extra Space, and he recently bought his first deal, a small deal, but the deal was brought to him, right? He
Right.
networks religiously. He was down at a mastermind with me in New Orleans last March at the SSA show, always out and about talking to people, but a genuinely good guy, like that guy that is always going to tell you the truth, always acts with integrity. And the deal came to him, right?
Sure.
It came to his lap. And so it's interesting you talk about that, right? Like, how do you die in real estate? You die when deals are not coming your way. And why do
Bingo.
deals not go your way? Because you don't act with integrity. You don't treat people right, right? You don't do things the right way and honor what it is you said you were going to do. When I talked about that assignment that we made 200,000, that we made a 20% almost spread purely on going and putting a property under contract and then assigning it to somebody else and it closing. Here's the deal. The developer that bought that project knew from the beginning what I was going to make. I did not try and hide anything from him. It was all there.
Yeah.
Here's the numbers. Here's my contract. Here's what I'm paying. If you don't want to pay me what I'm asking for, no problem. I'll go find somebody else to buy it. That's perfectly okay. When you lay your cards on the table, and this is one of the things I've loved about you since we first met, treat people with integrity. Tell the truth. And then don't only tell them the truth, right? But one of the things I really love about you is connect. We went through this with a mutual acquaintance of ours who was out of a job. You had no reason to go help hook him up with people that you thought might be helpful to him finding a new job. But
Right.
you did it, right? Why? Did it do anything for you in the short term? Was there any return for Hoan in the
No.
immediate of helping our friend find some outlets to possibly? No, there's nothing in it for you. But you
Right.
know that down the road, that story is going to go around. And you didn't do it for this. I know you well enough to know that's not why you helped him. But at
Right.
the same time, that's the reality of it. Everyone's going to know that you were that guy, that when he was down in his luck, you were there to help him out in the best way you could. So really appreciate that about you. I'm getting sidetracked a little bit. I want to pull back a little.
Sure.
You have this. It's something interesting you said, right? Your mentor back at the beginning brought you this multifamily, 6 doors, which is pretty interesting, right? For those of you who don't know, residential property and commercial property is split at 4 to 5 doors, right? So 4 doors of a property is considered a residential property, even if there's 4 units in it. 5 units is considered commercial, and that changes things for the bank, right? When you go to refi something with the bank, a commercial property is looked at based on cash flow. A residential property is looked at based on comps. What are other things in the market selling for, right? So for investors, obviously, if you can get judged by the bank purely on cash flow, that helps. I get sidetracked. I like to educate a little bit, which I know you love too. But I want to
Hmm.
go back because you said something that struck me as interesting, which is your mentor said, this deal is just not big enough for me.
Hmm.
And I want to kind of expound on that as it pertains to people maybe a little nervous about getting into real estate. Like, there's no room for me here, right? So talk to me a little bit about how there's these levels of real estate and there is a place for everyone, right? There's a
Yeah.
place for you to get involved.
Yeah, yeah. And what's funny is nobody dictates that but us, right? And it's our reality, and everybody lives a different reality, which is really cool. So for those listening, wherever you are, just realize that reality that you're living, those thoughts that you have, those are self-generated. You created those somehow, some way. You may not know, and you may be doing it without even consciously knowing that you're doing it. Right? You're putting yourself in a certain box, and you think a certain number is expensive or cheap. And for a perfect example, if I told you, hey, I'm going to buy a car, right? And then I told you I'm spending $110,000 on the car, you may that say, wow, that's a lot of money for a car. Or if you are used to buying $300,000 to $500,000 cars, you might go, wow, that's a really cheap car, right? And so what is it? We're both humans. It's just a reality that we created in our minds. And how did that come about? It's just who we hung out with. And so, yes, everybody has a place in real estate. And I was just on a podcast yesterday where the guy, he says, like, we try to give everybody the power of real estate, or like we try to distribute the power of real estate. Like he has a software, and like real estate has power. It's just a matter of how much power do you want to yield or wield, I should say, right? How much power do you want to wield? So are you one who wants to move 100 unit apartment buildings, or are you one who wants to stick with single family? And there's no right or wrong, right? That's the other thing that I think people need to realize, that there's no right or wrong, and that everybody who's just doing bigger deals, they're not necessarily doing it better, right? They're not necessarily doing it better. And there's plenty of people who are doing really big deals and they're in a lot of trouble. Do you think those people doing really big deals would much rather be doing very small deals but not be in trouble, or do big deals and be in trouble? So there's
Right.
not no right or wrong. It's just like, where do you want to play and where are you comfortable playing, right? If this whole entire world is a game, your life is a game, what game do you want to play? So you get to decide. If you want to play in the 100 unit space, great. If you want to play in the 1 unit space, great. Don't let anybody make you feel bad about it, and don't you feel bad about it unless you want to go to another level. And then if you do want to go to another level, you have to question why. Is it purely for the financial reasons, which I would say is the right reason, or do you gain significance and you think that you're going to be more valuable in the eyes of other people if they hear that you now buy 100 unit buildings? Because I know a lot of people gain a lot of significance from going bigger, and that's why they do it. And it's really because when they were 5 years old, they were made to feel insignificant. And so one
Right.
day in the future, I'm going to make something of myself. And then they stumbled across real estate, and then they figured, this is the vehicle. I'm going to be the biggest fish in the pond. And then the biggest fish in the pond becomes the trophy hunt or whatever from the fisherman, and
It's
then you
the
get
big game
killed.
hunter. It's
Yeah.
interesting you say that, right? I'm thinking about a family in self storage that in the 1990s went public with their self storage holdings
Cool.
and got bought out in a hostile takeover by Public Storage. And like that's the danger when you start to decide you're going to get to be a big fish. Now that story has a good ending because they're now the largest privately held owner of self storage in the world. So they rebounded from that devastation to come back in a very big way. But it's interesting because sometimes, right, be careful what you wish for. But I love what you said. At the end of the day, it's you. You get to decide. You get to decide where you're going to play. This is something another mentor of mine. I was going through a ridiculously bad time I had just bought 2 apartments, and one of them was zoned as a two unit and was being rented as a 3. And I bought
Yeah.
it during COVID, so the township was shut down, and I was freaking out. Like I thought it was the end of my life. And my mentor said, "Dad, you signed up for this. You chose this, right? You decided to put yourself here, so figure it out." And ultimately, what happened? I figured it out, and the end result of figuring it out was put myself in a way better position once I took ownership over the problem. Right? Instead of crying, "Woe is me, what's the problem?" No, all right, let's find a way to make this thing work, however it works. And so I thought that was very genius what you said, which is you get to decide what your story is, right? You get to
Yeah.
tell yourself what that story is going to be and decide what it is. The power of that. And I know this is something I want to go down the road with you, even though we only have a few minutes. Amazingly, we've been 25 minutes talking already, which is pretty quick. I try and keep this to a half hour so everybody can get a chance to listen to it relatively quickly. Little hack: listen to it on 2 times speed when you're listening, guys. Especially if you're listening on YouTube, they let you speed it up. Hoan and I sound really cool, like Alvin and the Chipmunks. But you can listen to this whole podcast in 15 minutes, which is a lot of knowledge to compress. What I wanted to talk to you about, and something I know has been very important to you, I had mentors who helped me through those challenging times, right? Those times when I was scared that the world was falling apart and it wasn't going to work. How important it has been for you to join different groups and different, I know you paid a lot of money for different masterminds and
Mhm.
different mentors. How important has that been in the growth of Home Tai as a real estate investor?
It's funny because like every time I'm about to join another one, I look at that price tag and it's like 5 figures and you're just like, do I really want to pay 5 figures to join this thing? And then it's like, I got to remind myself that every time I bet on myself, it pays off.
Mhm.
And so every time I join them, it does. It pays off, and it pays off in ways that you don't know and you can't predict. And so part of the game of life is that it is unpredictable. So for everybody who's like a control freak, you got to let it go. You got to let it go because you can't predict what's going to happen, and that's actually the beauty of it too, because life can be so unpredictable in a great way. It can happen for you, like they say, life happens for you. So by joining these groups, these mentorships, and all that kind of stuff, like I get to learn things that I didn't even know existed. Right? I
Yeah.
didn't know Burr existed until I joined that thing, right? That group. And so just know that whatever you think you know, that's just one level or one layer of the onion. And there's so many more things, right? And I see it all day long because I actually coach people, right? I've now become the coach and I've help a lot of people. They come in and I'm like, okay, so like tell me your plan, tell me your financial plan. How do you plan on buying real estate? And the things that come out of their mouths, I'm just like, where did you learn that? Like it's so wrong. Okay, I'll just put it bluntly. It's wrong. They have no idea what they're talking about. So thank goodness they're going to work with me so that I can teach them what exists and how it's actually done the right way in the real world. Because imagine if this person never joined a program and they just kept on going with that thought. It's like was it the sunrise comes up the east and goes down on the west side, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And if you go east trying to find a sunset,
Yeah.
you'll never get it. Like that's how these people sound, and that's how I probably sounded. So no knock to them, but go get the help. Go hire the people. Go pay for the programs. Go do the work. There's a cool saying that the work works on you more than you work on it. Okay, I'll say it again. The work works on you more than you work on it. So you go out, go do the work. The work is going to change you. There's that saying, be, do, have, right? But instead of be, do, have, it's just do, right? Just go do because it's going to change who you are, that being that you are. And then it's going to change what you have. So go do. And sometimes the do is go out there, put yourself out there, go network with people and let the work on you.
Is reminds me of my martial arts teacher, Tiger Schulman. Very successful martial arts instructor. A bunch of guys he's trained got into the UFC successfully, and people would ask him, like, "Hey, what am I doing wrong with this cross? Why is my cross punch wrong?" And he would literally be like, "Go throw it 1,000 times and then come back and ask me again." Right? And what happens when you go practice it 1,000 times? You no longer have to ask.
You
You
get
figured it
better.
out, right? You did
Yeah.
100%, right? So that idea of just going out and putting in the work and putting in the effort and not only, and I know this from you and from having worked with you, it's not just about going to them. And this because you've been in masterminds and you've been in training programs where if there's 100 people in the room, a couple years later, there's only going to be 5 to 10 of them who really took action on what it is that they learned, right? There's going to
Right.
be 80, 90, 95% of the people that hear it, listen to it, but don't have the courage to go take action. So appreciate the way you brought that out and just listen. At the end of the day, it's about, yes, I want to go learn because I don't want to make the mistakes somebody else can tell me how to avoid, right? If it's as easy as going west instead of going east and somebody could tell me that, I didn't
Yeah.
know it. That's fantastic. But then I got to go do it, right? I got to go take action and see where it leads me. Listen, as crazy as this sounds, we're coming up on the 30-minute mark. We will
Yeah.
have to do this again. I didn't even really get into self storage with you,
No, we didn't
which
talk
is
anything about real estate.
we covered a lot of topics, which is really cool. We'll have to do this again, man. I cannot thank you enough for coming and joining me. Have so much respect for you. Do me a favor and give people that are listening the best way to get a hold of you, to contact you if they want to follow you and get more insight from you, if they want to, have you as a real estate coach. How does someone connect with the Hone Zone?
Yeah, yeah. So Hoan is spelled Hoan, right? Hoan, and then zone, Zone. So honezone.com is my website. If you guys want to work with me, then it's honezone.com/apply. I can teach you all aspects of real estate, but then I can also go through the mindset part too, because it's probably 80% mindset and then 20% technical. And luckily for you guys, I can teach 100% of all of it. And I've done it for many years, and people love the coaching that I provide because ultimately you're not learning how to be a real estate investor, you're learning how to live life better, and real estate just provides the financial aspect of it. So that's ultimately what I help people achieve through the program. So email me hone@honezone.com, go to the website honezone.com, or go to honezone.com/apply if you guys would like to talk to me.
Love it. Appreciate it. As you guys know, I'm Safe Storage USA. We are always looking for self-storage facilities, whether it's existing. If you have a piece of raw land, you're going to see all my contact information on the screen. It's going to be very easy to get a hold of me. You'll also see, you saw Hones on the screen too. Touch base with us. Tell us your thoughts. Leave a comment. Tell us if you thought we were worth a listen. If you do, subscribe, follow again. We look forward to having you. thank you so much for joining Self-Storage Made Simple. Hoan, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us. I look forward to doing it again.
Let's do it.